The biggest pros as well as the biggest cons of living in Paraguay. Today I'm joined by a Nomad Elite client. His name is Bart. He is a citizen of Poland. He just applied for Paraguayan residency. And today he's going to share his personal experience on living in Paraguay. And not only is he going to reveal some of the biggest pros that he has personally experienced while being here, but he is also going to reveal some of the bad stuff that the majority of people never like to talk about. This is going to be different because usually it's me preaching the pros, and you've watched our videos in the past and you have mentioned in the video we just did how I have also pointed out some of the negative points of living here as well as other countries. And I always thought it's very insightful to hear the experience from somebody else. So right out of the gate, give me the first con of living in Paraguay. Like the biggest con that you see where you're like, this could be a lot better.
So the very first for me is that no one speaks English. So it's literally no one. And they don't even try to speak or try to understand. So this is the very first thing. But for someone who speaks Spanish, it's not a problem at all. The second, not language related issue is with crossing a street is a skill over here. If you are familiar with the traffic in Europe, here you have to forget about what you learned in Europe, and you have to be very careful crossing the street because no one really cares about you. It's not that they don't care, they just bypass you. You are like a ghost here. So that's something that we have to be, as a European at least, very aware of.
I just want to add a little point here. Now, what you said about like crossing the roads here is true. Like nobody stops. There is a crosswalk where people are supposed to stop, where cars are supposed to stop, but nobody stops. Nobody stops.
Yeah.
So technically the infrastructure is in place, but it's not being used. And we talked about when we were having lunch how some people stop, and you have realized this too, and then I've pointed out to you the people who usually stop are not from here, right? They're from Argentina, from Uruguay, or they are from like Europe, or maybe from the US or Canada. They are going to stop because they are from a different country where, things work very differently. And so hopefully this will change. It will get better. It's kind of hard for me to say too, because I haven't lived here for like 10 years to have observed the changes incrementally. I can imagine that it has improved, but there's still a lot of room left for improvement, certainly, right? Then secondly, you said that nobody speaks English, right?
Yeah.
That's true. And this is a very prominent problem across whole Latin America. There are some geographic locations, areas in Latin America where more people speak English, like Panama City is one of them. I'd say also Argentina, Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, more people speak English there. Mexico City, certain neighborhoods are better. So if you want, I always call this a soft landing. If you come to a country and you don't speak the local language, you want to be in a neighborhood where you can get by with whichever language you speak now at the moment, right? So obviously that's going to be English in the vast majority of cases. So that's something you have to get used to. On the other hand, I would say the people are very friendly here. There are a lot of countries, non-English speaking countries I've been to, where people also didn't speak English and they were not friendly at all. Here people are at least friendly, and they are not going to be like rude about you not communicating in English. In fact, they want to help you, right? And they're usually very kind about it. Whereas a lot of other places I've been to where there's almost hardly any English spoken, they're like, oh, why do you come to our place? They didn't say that, but you could tell, right? What's a big pro of living in Paraguay? Now you've given us two big cons. What's the biggest pro for you personally?
So I just want to add one thing about to the language topic. That in the place where I live right now, they live a lot of Brazilian students, and they do not speak English either. So it's not a problem with Paraguay, like you said, but it might be a bigger issue in general in this part of the world. So there are students of medicine, because this is this kind of university, and even they do not speak English. So it can be a bigger issue. And about the traffic that as we spoke, even there is infrastructure. Very often there are lights just for cars, not for pedestrians. So pedestrians can cross the street when the cars stop for their lights. So there is even to this point a challenge. So about the good things, the weather, of course, Some people like where it's hot or cold, but weather is very nice over here. Living costs are very low, I would say. The food is very good. I mean, there are places where you can buy cheap food and low quality. That's obvious. But even the good quality food is not that expensive over here. As we talked about the internet connection and this 21st century technologies, they work here pretty well. People are friendly, that's true, but they do not have, at least from my point of view, they don't have too much experience with foreigners, because for a person like me who barely speaks Spanish, when I ask them to repeat, they just repeat what they said, but louder. So the problem is not with my hearing, it's a problem with my vocabulary. But because they don't have an experience, so they do not rephrase what they said in a simple way, they just repeat again and again the same. They are very polite, but they are not very familiar with how to deal with foreigners who can't speak their language. And you can feel quite a lot of freedom over here. I like walkable cities, and even though Asuncion it is not a very walkable city per se, but when you walk along the road, no one will bother you. So even if there is no infrastructure, you can freely go, of course, on your own risk, and you have to be aware of the traffic and so on. That's true. But in general, you can walk all over the city, around the city, and no one will say anything bad that you are not supposed to be there or wherever. So there is a lot of freedom in this sense.
You have given us the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything, right? So we're not going to edit this now. We appreciate you sharing also the things that you believe could be better, and always some things that could be better. And so to us, it's important when people come here, especially people that are like in their 40s or 50s, they're looking at things through a more realistic lens. When you're like very young, in like your early 20s, your mid 20s, that's different. But as you mature, you have a much more realistic stance on things in life. So we appreciate that.
What's very important when you move to places, for example, like this, which is more different than probably any other European city, to my country, you have to avoid making any assumptions. I mean, things can be different here. I'm not saying the better or worse way, but making assumptions can make troubles. And for example, renting an apartment. Apartments some are new, some are old. And the old one has own issues, the new one has own issues. Some are better quality, some are just with lower quality. For example, single glazing in Poland, double glazing, triple glazing is a standard. Here it's rather not. So when there is a 30 or 40 degrees outside and you have single glazing, you are like in a greenhouse. So there are many things that work differently here, and that's why we should be more aware that the things can exist and stop making assumptions.
It's important not to bring your current habits into a new place expecting that your current habits will function properly here. Just the same as you would go, I don't know, to Thailand, or would go to North Africa, say Tunisia, or you go to South Africa, or wherever. So it's just very important that when you come here, you realize that certain things, they do work very differently, like Bart has pointed out. And that's not bad or good, right? It's not good or bad. It is what it is. You have to take it at face value and adjust. Like, I think that's going to be the key for you being an immigrant to Paraguay, like adjusting, for me too, accepting the country for what it is. And there's going to be good and bad everywhere. If you're interested in relocating to Paraguay and would like to use Nomad Elite as your trusted partner in relocation, we would love to work with you. Please go to nomadelite.com and book a consultation with me personally. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your attendance, and I look forward to welcoming you to the next video.